Okay, then we can share the. Okay, so welcome everyone again. I'm LUISA MARINO. I'm chair of this committee, and I'll be chairing this small group discussion with us. And I will just advise you, we're going to record for IPA use only this session. It's mainly for us to remember our presentations, but feel free if you don't feel comfortable to take off your video. And we'll be muted everyone at the moment. And then when you have comments or questions, you can put it in the chat areas in English or in Spanish. And to talk, you will be allowed to unmute yourself, of course. So our little agenda, we go in the next page.
May I say something? Excuse me, Luisa.
Yes.
Denise Goldfein would like to join, and she doesn't have a link.
You want to send her, can you share the same link I gave you?
I did,
share
but
it with
she's not getting there. Okay, I'll tell her to try more.
She has the link is open. So everyone is allowed that's got that link is allowed. So please, yes, share it.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Okay, can you skip this page, Kate, please? Can you go in the next one? Okay. So just to explain you a little bit, the PERC is a psychoanalytic committee on relocating and emigration of psychoanalysts. So we've been working now for 4 years on the theme of understanding and helping supporting colleagues like us that need or had the experience of moving from one country to another. And how has it worked and has been working in terms of arranging your move and joining a new institute where you're landing. For whatever reason you moved from one country to another, how was the process of joining a new institute or joining a new society, being already from another institute or being trained somewhere else? So it is also on the theme of immigration specifically. It's not only on policies of immigration, of how psychoanalysts change, but it's also about itself a theme related to the psychoanalytic reflections on immigration. So I'm just gonna briefly tell you something more about what we've been doing. So our committee we help members on welcoming new analysts as well in new institutes. But since the pandemic started, with the initial puzzlement, we had to rethink our mission. And so we decided to create meetings via Zoom to connect directly in person in a Zoom meeting with colleagues that were in foreign countries during the pandemic. It is the more difficult time, our current situation, and it was at that point. So the crisis where most of us may have found themselves in a foreign country, willing to reconnect with the country and the institute of origin, as well as finding support by joining and connecting with a new one. So we contacted the members, we knew already we're in this position, and those who would have liked to be helped in this situation. And with these recurrent meetings, we've been listening, helping and supporting, and exchange reciprocal experiences to our collective knowledge, along with previous 4 years of this work as PERC. So we'll hear a little bit more, but Rogelio will present a little bit more about the history of this committee as well. So we established our first meeting in May 2020 with 5 initial relocated members. And then since then, we've been very welcoming and new members that actually were moving around the institutes and around different parts of the world. So our aim is not only now creating this kind of relationship among members, but also helping people in their decision process, providing practical information on how to relocate, connect locally with the colleagues that we know. As the big IPA institution, we know a lot of colleagues in different regions. So that's why it's very important to be part of the IPA, to connect with the other colleagues in other institutes when we happen to move into a new country. So we are now willing to work as a bridge with local society to support this process of integrating emigrating analysts, particularly in these uncertain times of pandemic and post-pandemic. So this comes with great difficulties, and we wanted now to reflect on why there are these, what is the reason of the difficulties of absorbing new members in a new country in their new institutes. There are a lot of conscious and some unconscious implications in the process of relocating, we know that. But also we are now want to explore the difficulties from the part of the recipient, the receiving society, the soil where we land. For this reason, we connected with our other committees and colleagues like that we now have guests today that have more experience also on immigration general issues like Virginia and Ludovica and other colleagues. So this is our latest goal. So now, Kate, can we show the agenda of presentation of my other colleagues that are gonna talk now? Okay, yes, perfect. So Rogelio Sosnik, you are welcome to unmute yourself, and we want to hear from your experience and your written part. If you want to share, please.
Okay.
You want to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Yes. Well, I'm Rogelio Sosnik. I was trained in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in the first in the Argentina Psychoanalytic Society. Then I moved to Abdeva, and then I moved to New York. 32 years ago. In New York, I joined IPTAR and the Freudian Society and the American Psychoanalytic Society. But before migrating, in my society in Abdeva, they really pushed me to become a full member of the IPA, because that was my kind of card of presentation. And certainly that really helped me, you know, instead of being an associated member or still a candidate, that helped me to, you know, to open some doors, not necessarily, you know, welcoming, but certainly doors. And, you know, so that is now I'm a training analyst in Buenos Aires and in New York in the Freudian Society. I also am in the board of the International Journal. And I have been kind of working with patients in English and Spanish. I'm located in New York City, and I have been teaching also. I had a workshop during 24 years in the American Psychoanalytic Association on the work of Bion, that in the moment that I moved to New York, at that time, certainly was an unknown person in New York, doing, you know, the traditional thing. So I want to talk about the history and what is our committee. As Luisa said, our committee is composed by immigrants. So we can resonate very well with the process that moving from one country to another, you know, implies personally. But in the beginning, in 2018, when Bolognini created this, our committee, was a big kind of mixed feelings about a committee that can act as a police within the society, within the umbrella organization that is the IPA, by imposing rules on things like that in different societies. So we started for kind of erase this kind of idea, because it's not our role to impose new laws in terms of immigration, but to help members that belong to the IPA not to lose their sense of belonging to the IPA, neither their identity as psychoanalysts. Certainly, one of the issues that, you know, all along these years, we are learning very much is regarding how to preserve and expand the sense of identity as psychoanalysts while joining different countries with different languages and different psychoanalytic cultures. So we have, in that regard, we have kind of two levels of work that we have been doing. The institutional level, that is a work in progress, because many societies, most of the societies, they don't have rules regarding a foreigner member that come to them So each society have their own rules, you know, present a paper or assist to clinical discussions or they be, you know, facilitating, you know, the possibility to go to some seminars or some lectures. Some others, they really, some of them are more open, some others are less open. And that is one of the factors that, you know, is the ongoing work in progress for us. The other was the legal situation that we have to research in order how to, you know, become a practitioner in different countries and different places. And that is another level of information that we have been collecting all this time along. The other issue is the issue about identity and the sense of belonging. And in that regard, it's not only that we are part of an umbrella organization that wants not to lose their memberships and their members because they are relocating, but in addition, the other level that we are trying and putting our emphasis is to explain clearly to the migrating people how to preserve their sense of identity while being open to the learning process that implies the incorporation to not only new language, but the new families that you are going to be kind of asking to. One that the moment that you leave your kind of mother's society, meaning your previous family, and facing this sense of being an orphan, in the requesting, you know, to be adopted for another society. So in that regard, each of us has different experiences. You know, the people that receive patients, they continue receiving patients from their places of belonging and speaking their languages. Some others are trying to make the effort to incorporate and expand, because our experience is by moving from one country to another, we expand our sense of identity. And that is clear for us as an experience. By learning the new psychoanalytic languages that are speaking within these kind of new families. Yeah. And also not feeling ashamed that, you know, not only not ashamed, but also understanding that this is a real learning process, as Bion will say, no? It's a learning process, you know, how to continue and expanding your identity, but being capable to navigate from this kind of different languages also. And that has been an experience for all of us. So in itself, the belonging and the preservation of the belonging to the IPA and the learning process that implies the change, we feel that amplify our identity and provide us with more security about talking languages, psychoanalytic languages, and the connection with people, because not only is the language or the theory that is on fashion in different societies, but also meeting colleagues that are becoming your new friends and the people that really, you know, are part of your life. So it's the positive side of this. So that is synthesis, you know, what I can say.
Thanks a lot, Rogelio. Thanks a lot. That was a great introduction to what we've been doing and why we do it, emotionally as well, of course, and practically. So now I wanted to introduce briefly Graciela Hoyos. She will present herself a little bit about her own experience. And just to give you a brief reminder, we're going to do a couple of presentations and then we're going to open to the floor. So we stop a little bit and then we'll do another two presentation like this. So just to keep it lively, please. Please, Graciela.
Thank you, Luisa. Hello, everyone. I am originally from Colombia, and I moved 3 years ago to Switzerland, to Zurich, because of love, no? And well, almost everyone knows Holger Himmelhofen, who is my husband. And we met in IPSO while we were working as candidates in this organization. And well, a few years later, something happened, and here I am. I am formally, I am a member of the Colombian Psychoanalytic Society in Colombia still. And I decided to keep a very active role in this society when I moved to Zurich. I was at that time the director of the Child and Adolescents Department. And in a way that was very helpful, kept me with a lot of work while I was transitioning here, and also keep my relationships to my society. And at the same time, I was appointed to be part of this committee, the PERC, in my new role as a migrated person, relocated. And since then, I have been also very interested in the not only the process of migrating, but also how, as Rogelio was saying, and this is a bit what I want to stress in my presentation, the learning opportunities and how this allows you to continue growing. So I'm still active in the society in Colombia. I have not been able to relocate as member in the society in Zurich because they speak German, and my German is very basic still. But I hope I will someday, maybe. And I am also part of the Psychoanalytic Annual in Spanish, Libro Anual de Psicoanálisis. I am currently the secretary of that with Gustavo Jara, know him. And this is also something interesting now in my life, doing some of the translations and editing the journal. And the other part is learning how to live in Zurich. And actually I am working with Holger in our praxis, and most of my patients are migrants, as Rogelio was saying, in Spanish and English. And I think they benefit a lot from my own experience as migrant. And I would say I am also benefiting a lot from their experience as migrants. So it's in both sense. Okay, so I am, one last thing, I think it's very important to keep the contact with your people. No? And I fortunately see so many friends here, which I am so happy to see every time. Okay, my presentation. The title is Migration as an Ongoing Maturational Process. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, maturation is defined as the emergence of personal and behavioral characteristics through growing processes. In this brief reflection, I would like to stress two main ideas. The first is that migration is a process and is a part of the life. And second, migration is an ongoing maturational process. I will also refer to the interesting idea that Bruno Catalano illustrates in his series, Les Voyageurs. If you remember, in our flyer, we had these interesting sculptures where you can see the person that is traveling, right, migrating, also has a suitcase. All of them share this same aspect. And you can see they are placed in different places around in the cities. Thank you, great. And for sure, you can see that the emptiness that represents the empty space is also something important. So I would like to refer to those. In Catalano's series, The Voyageurs, we have 4 elements that seem to be interacting with each other to represent experience of migration. The subject represents the individual psychic and the physical resources. The suitcase represents the belongings that are kept and migrate with you. The third would be the empty space in the body representing loss. And the fourth, the public space, the place where the sculpture is settled, representing the new environment that is interacting and receiving, welcoming or not, individual in the relocation. Everyday life confronts us with the different levels of migration. We might migrate from one neighborhood to another, from preschool to primary school, then to high school, and then to university. We can even migrate from one group of friends to another, from one job to the next promotion, or to one city to another city within the same country, or to another country. The word emigration refers particularly to this last situation, to leave one place of residence or country to elsewhere. In my opinion, what is different in the experience of migrating are the levels of migration. What remains stable and familiar versus what is lost and is left behind. As psychoanalysts, we know that losing is not only inevitable, but also necessary as part of development. The dynamic between keeping and losing will be experienced in different ways. The more you need to leave behind, your home, your family, your name, your identity, your friends, your job, your city, your language, your routines, etc., the bigger the experience of loss. In Catalano ideas, the smaller the suitcase, the bigger the emptiness. Realizing that you are no longer a local is painful and can be very scary. You will need to learn again how to move in the new place, how to interact with a new culture and people, and learn many new explicit or implicit codes of social and emotional interactions, new ways of doing things, new routines, new language, new climate, the need to validate your titles and prove to authorities and colleagues that you are fit for work. Many of what was once achieved won't be present in the relocation, must accept the loss, the diminished autonomy, the vulnerability, and the pain. Grieving who you used to be is now critically necessary. In this sense, emigrating is a major challenge to the sense of one's identity and security. Who am I now? And here. I found Peter Bloch's concept, regression in the service of development in character formation in adolescence, very useful to understand how regression brings the ego in contact with the infantile drive position, the early object relations, and solutions to the central conflicts that re-emerge with the immigration and the relocation. You are no longer who you were. This regression will facilitate the working through all these conflicts in adolescence and emigration. So the individual can continue forming the new identity and develop can happen, new capacities for a new life. As we know, the quality of the receiving environment is very important as well. The more good enough it is, will facilitate for you to use your internal and external resources and reduce the experience of loss, and will allow you to express your true self or to develop. On the contrary, the more unwelcoming the environment, the more hazards, the more obstacles, the bigger the emptiness and the difficulty to develop, sometimes even to stay. Regarding the suitcase, I would like to stress how important it has been to bring in my suitcase, my IPA as my society's membership as part of my belongings. They travel with me. They are part, they stay here. To be part of a psychoanalytic community has helped me to maintain, to some extent, this sense of identity, as Rogelio was saying, and belongings, especially when many other aspects of my life were challenged to reorganize in many ways. With all this in mind, PERC was created to and relocation, and also the recipient societies, because we know that emigrating involves much more than changing address or receiving a guest. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Graciela. That was deeply moving and intense, which is, I think I'm happy to, if you all agree, guys, we can have a few minutes, like 5-10 minutes of conversation, if anyone has some comments or some ideas, and then we'll go on with other 2 or 3 presentations from our side. Please feel free to raise the hand and unmute yourself.
Can I say something? Yes, well, I'd like to congratulate you, I think, and say hello to all people that are here, and I've been missing for some time. It's a really moving idea, actually, to have this support and to make it easier, you know? And I was thinking here, because I was a patient in the United States. I had this, I didn't speak the language. And after some time, I thought I could be an analyst there because I could understand the culture. I mean, I think you can work, I mean, internally also, but you're infantile. It's in your hearing also of the patient. So I think this is very interesting how we have this psychic work to integrate what he said, to preserve a part and then to blend in. And your sculptures, I like very much both comments. Your sculptures, I thought also that when you see them in a picture, in a photograph, you can think they're blending in also. You don't see the shock between the material and the landscape. When you take a picture, the impression is that the person is blending in with the landscape. So I think that's what you're saying, how to preserve some traits and how to blend in to expand your experience. And it's very beautiful when you say my patients benefit.
And Andrea, I would like to let another question or another intervention from Virginia de MICCO. If you would like to introduce briefly yourself and please tell us something.
Thank you, Rogelio. first I have to say that it's a little bit difficult to say something after what Andrea said was so moving, but I will try all the same. I am from Italian society, and I work with migrant fields from so many years, but it's very interesting for me to listen to your direct experience as a psychoanalyst that migrate in other psychoanalytical society and how difficult it is all the same. What Andrea said reminded me an history of family. So a personal story. My aunt emigrated to South America, and her daughters was born in South America, and they always lived in hot places. When they came for the first time to Italy, so to their land of origin, but that for them, for these little girls, was absolutely unknown, was a stranger country. It was winter, as Andrea said, and they was very, very cold, but they didn't know a single word in Italian for saying it is cold. They know only to say the Italian word for hot. So it was absolutely, they were very, very cold, but said, how, in Italian, how hot is in this Naples? It's absolutely a revolution. But what is important to me, it's a little reflection on the recipient minds. As LUISA MARINO said, our reflection on recipient society as IPA society, but I would extend this reflection on recipient minds, recipient environment, and as Graciela said, that is crucial just in this regressive experience of migration. And if the recipient environment, but I want to say the recipient minds are good enough, there's an evolution. But if the recipient mind is not good enough, and the question is, the recipient society didn't ask us for going there. And so there's a hard work to do, a psychic work to do, to receive someone that even if is a colleague, another psychoanalyst, we share something of our identity, but in a way, as we know, and at an unconscious level, he is not only a foreign one, but a stranger one too. And so what Rogelio said, as a migrant, we have to have time and to do a psychic work, but as a recipient mind too, as a recipient society, we have to do a work too, and hard work too. And perhaps as in my opinion, we don't have only, and this committee, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps as this aim to, not only to help migrants, migrant colleague to land in this new reality, but at the same time to help recipient society, recipient minds to accept something stranger, something that has to be metabolized in a way. For the moment, it's enough for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Virginia. That is exactly why we wanted a little bit of the background of migration in general, and what is this recipient's mind like, and the land and the soil we are landing into. How do we help developing that? That is a crucial step for us. Is there anyone else who wanted to say something, or we go on with the next presentations and then we can have another conversation like this?
Better.
Yes, we can do that. Yes, okay, great, thank you. So next in our committee presentation is Jean Wolf-Bernstein. And please, Jean, unmute yourself and you can briefly introduce yourself and say your part about this.
As Virginia was saying, I think it's very hard and feels too intellectual to just give a presentation, because I think, and I was thinking how we can also establish the whole discussion almost between hot and cold. I think that those are incredibly important signifiers in a way, because we, the immigrants, come hot, right? With a lot of passion. Either we have to immigrate, or in my case, I didn't have to immigrate. I wanted to come back to Europe, but we have a passion, we have a desire. We have to, or we want to be there. And as Virginia is saying, this is not at all the status of the institute to which we come. I think most the institutes, unless they have very few members and you know, want to grow, tend to be not on the hot, on the passionate side, but more on the cold recipient side. Like, what are we going to do with this foreigner? We're essentially foreigners to the recipient society, unless we are very famous and they couldn't wait to get us. But that's the rare and I think exceptional situation. So I think what I wanted to focus on is the different mindsets we have to really think of. The mindset of the immigrant who needs things, who wants things, who has a lot of initial difficulties to settle down in a new culture, in a new, sometimes for me it was not a new language, but you know, all the stuff, and then the recipient society who looks at you and think, do we want this person or not? And this is where my big disappointment with the IPA came in, because, you know, I had been thinking when I came to Vienna, because I was a training analyst in California and because I was even the president of my own institute and all of this, none of this meant anything in Vienna. I had written some stuff, so they knew kind of, but I was largely sort of received with some suspicion. You know, why is she coming back here? Why to Vienna, etc. In the meantime, things have gotten better. So better that I'm now a training analyst in Vienna. But even there, when I became a training analyst, there was a little snafu, because it was the first time for my institute in Vienna to accept somebody as a training analyst who had already been a training analyst in another country. So they were actually trying to be very nice to me, and they changed things around rather than, you know, a drawn out ritual. They only asked me to present a case. But they made one mistake. They said, okay, it was fine, and so what is their tradition is that they usually ask their institute, or they tell the institute, such and such a person becomes a training analyst. Do you have any objections to that? And they didn't do this in my case. They forgot about it. The entire committee forgot about it, which, you know, retroactively, nachträglich, après coup, was a really interesting thing, because I didn't know about it, because at my old institute at PERC, we never did it that way. So it came to, and so there was one particular person and another one who was in an uproar about it, and all sorts of, rumors were established of why they were making me so quickly a training analyst. So, I mean, it eventually, worked itself out, and they asked afterwards if they had any objections to me. But you're always a you're always a strange creature. You're always in this sort of in-between land. I mean, I've now been here for 10 years, and I know the culture much better. But what I also underestimated is not only we've talked most about coming to a different country, coming to a different language, coming to a different culture, but, and I would imagine Rogelio knows something about it, what I didn't anticipate and what I really had to learn, and I'm still learning, are the politics within the institutes and between the institutes, like sometimes what mess you get into without knowing, about it. So it takes an enormous amount of time once you've done with all the procedural stuff to really feel yourself into an institute, to know where the interests lie, and that they can be so very different from what you've known about. And that, I think, is important to know ahead of time and to be prepared for it. And as Louisa said to me a long time ago, when we were talking at another meeting about Freud's paper on terminable and internable analysis, in some way, what you go through, no matter how far you are as an analyst, this experience of immigrating, teaches you that you always have to start anew again. And it was important to me to learn I can be a nobody, and I have to, work myself into a culture and a society again, that I thought I didn't have to do. But I think I learned from it a lot. And my last two things are, I'm going to make a little bit of a publicity for an upcoming panel at the IPA that very much talks about the whole notion of home and homeless and belonging, which is next Sunday with Adam Bader and Carolina Barchi. Adam Bader is from California. Carolina Barchi is from Brazil and immigrated to California. And they really have written two absolutely moving and loving papers on patients that had to move from one country to another. So it's very much been on my mind, the whole issue of immigration. And lastly, how, and you never know where you land, how immigration can, be incredibly traumatic, but also can be incredibly creative. Mm-hmm. And it's the balance, is what you can do with it. But you never know. I think it's important, if anybody listens to us who is planning to do it, is to be modest in your expectations and to be ready to learn more. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, John. Yeah, no, that was spot on. And Rogelio, did you raise your hand?
No,
1 second,
yes.
Then we, please.
Because Jeanne raised an important issue, is, the level of maturity that you have in your belonging to the maternal society or the society that you have been formed and educated. I mentioned when I moved that my society, knowing that I was moving to the States, pushed me to become a full member of the IPA in order to open doors. Certainly, Jeanne, face another issue, because being a training analyst, meaning that you are become part of the culture of the society. And that is the reason that many people have mixed feelings about how much really you understand, you know, the internal rules, because you're going to have candidates and you are an educator, not only an analyst, but you know, so the fact that you have been a training analyst in one place not necessarily implies that you're going to be accepted by another society. But something that I think that I want to talk about what James said, you know, is how much internally you feel, you know, mature enough to do the moving from one place to another. You know, not only the companionship or, you know, people that are supporting you, but how much you feel that you have been in some ways accomplished with your education in the society that you belong to, because that provides with much sense of freedom to accept and to continue with expansion of other places. If you feel that still you are kind of in the middle, or you are a candidate, or really you are just graduated, but in other words, you don't feel settled enough with your own sense of psychoanalytic identity, you know, because that is part of the luggage that you are going to be giving with you. It's not that you are completely empty inside. It's part of your luggage, and it's part of your support to face the adversity of the coldness of the new weathers.
Yes, I mean, Rogelio, imagine if our life would be upside down. How has it happened a couple of years ago? A year and a half it happened. Our lives went upside down. And every single training analyst in the world has to move to another training institute. And we all have to reevaluate our own knowledge of our own, how we've been training for all our lives. And suddenly we have to be introduced to a new institute randomly in the world. And it would be like if Freud had said many years ago, maybe every year and then we need a reanalysis, or we need a reevaluation of what we've been thinking until then, and how we've been working until then. So, okay, Luis wanted to.
Yes, can you hear me? Oh, well, I want to say thank you, Jeanne, also for your presentation. And politics and planning ahead could become, make you so vulnerable, because the plan never works. You know, you have your plan when you're moving. In my case, I relocated from Mexico to California. I had to travel to California 2 times to have interviews with people in the welcoming or the incoming society. I was following a plan. I was trying to get my license. Everything was perfect. Finally, I got my family, because, I mean, I relocated with my family. I have 2 daughters. That was very hard as well, because we were all dealing with the move. So finally, we are in California, everything is working, and suddenly the welcoming society became, well, I became a stranger for them, and they were not welcoming me anymore. So my plan, my license, everything just came down. I was a training analyst, supervisor, you know, all the politics didn't work. It didn't work. So what happened to me is that I was not able to practice. I was already in a foreign country, and suddenly I was looking for a job, you know, for a job, because I needed the income. So suddenly a psychoanalyst is facing a situation that he has never faced, in my case, in my entire life. So I was looking to get a job, and meanwhile, I decided to change my strategy. Instead of sending the letters to the incoming society, I decided to visit a new society. And instead of talking about, I'm a training analyst, I'm this, I'm that, I decided just to be humble, to attend to the meetings, to raise my hand, and to share my experience. Eventually somebody there noticed me. And, hey, who are you? Where are you coming from? So I start the conversation to be totally different. And fortunately, the new society welcomed me. But I had to start from, honestly, from zero, participating. And now I am very grateful for that society. Absane, we're in the same society. And but it was very hard, because who is an analyst without patients? It's not an analyst. It's like a mother without children. So suddenly your identity is fragmented. You're totally vulnerable. And as a father, I mean, not being able to provide, it's also very, very difficult. So especially in California, where the license is so difficult to get. But there are options. Okay. So we are all immigrants. That's what I felt during these 5 years that I have been in California. We are all immigrants in the mind of our patients. So we were already invited by their land to become part of it. Yes, but we have to be welcome. Otherwise, you know, paranoid defenses and many things could go wrong. And that's why one of my advices is, yeah, I mean, you have a plan, but probably you will need plan B and plan C. And it's very, very, very hard. So I'm grateful for my incoming society, finally a different one. And well, today I can tell myself, I am truly a transcultural psychoanalyst.
Yeah, a portable one. Yeah, portable. We are portable now. Okay, sorry. There's some. I'll let some other questions in, and then we'll do another sharing with Afsna and myself. So was it Savas first, and then Gloriana? Please, Savas, unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Luisa, and all the people who organized this meeting today. And I think this is a great opportunity to just interchange experiences. But also, you know, from the paper that Graciela just presented, I think this group might be also a good opportunity to just keep writing about our own experiences as a migrants from the psychoanalytical perspective. And I think this is going to be also an important role of this group if I'm able of suggesting this, because I think it's, you know, we all are personal experiences as analysts. We can also contribute to this kind of subjectivity that's being kind of impacted by the fact of immigrating. So also I have to thank Andrea for sharing her personal journey of this difficult situation that for her is migration, but I think encompasses any one of us, which is in a way struggling for making a kind of presence in the places we are living now. So for the one who doesn't know me, I'm a Venezuelan analyst from the Caracas Psychoanalytic Society, now living and working in London. And I'm gonna use something that Luis mentioned and also was mentioned before. It's not here now, she's JEANNE, yes, about identity and about how can we, in a way, use or analyze identity as a way of facing our space of migrants. So I'm not totally sure about if only that identity can be useful for us to face all the challenges that we need to face when we migrate. So that's an interesting topic to discuss. Also, you know, my personal contribution, I mean, JEANNE also mentioned that we need to start anew. And for me also, going back to the psychoanalytical reading in English, which is not my original language, and rereading that in English, it really makes a big difference. I mean, it's like, it's not the same. I mean, I need to relearn some technicalities of the same terms I learned in the past in Spanish into English, and that also require an extra effort. That's quite important just to mention. Also, gonna use what Luis mentioned. I mean, he said, how can you be an analyst without patience? And I totally agree. I mean, if you come to a country in which no one knows you, who's gonna refer you patient? There's no one. No one is gonna refer patients to you. So that's another topic that we need to keep discussing. Yeah, thanks for that, Luisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Savas. Yeah, I will say something later about the translation of concepts into different languages, because that's a massive IPA new attempt, no, with the encyclopedia that they're doing. Gloriana, please, to say something, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks all. So many things resonated with my experience, and I'm gonna just focus on something specific about my experience that maybe it's coming from a different angle, I think, from what has been said so far. So I'm originally from Italy, just to introduce myself, and I moved to New Zealand, Auckland, 8 years ago almost. And I had the pleasure to participate to this group in London at the IPA Congress when I get to know some of you. And I came here, yeah, as some others have mentioned, for love. That was my partner, who is a Lacanian analyst, was living here, but originally from Argentina. So quite a complex situation. And I think the issue of time definitely has been an issue, but also for me specifically, I was a candidate. So I just, when I moved, I had my analysis was already, had already started many years prior to starting the training, the formal training. And I was about to start the training. So when I came here, the other thing, and talking about love and what I could bring with me. So it was really difficult because the training was not, you know, I didn't have that community of all around me already established. And here, there is no IPA society. So New Zealand is, there are some, so my analyst, I maintain my contact with my analyst in Italy, and I could continue on Zoom at that time. So now we are talking pre-COVID and everything, but that was the connection that I had. Then I would say the only connection. And so I didn't have the opportunity or even to experience some of the struggle to you know, enter a new society, because there is not such a thing in here. So there was something that for me was really a sort of a psychoanalysis here is not it's not really established much. So there was a sort of a desert in terms of you know, re-establishing an identity or an opportunity to reconnect with what I left behind. So I think it's I eventually, that just to mention, then found the opportunity to do the training, the remote training with the Chicago Institute, and we presented also at the IPA pre-Congress on this theme of distant psychoanalytic training, because that was the only possibility for me to continue really with something that I really wanted to be able to continue. I didn't want to interrupt. So what I want to raise here is, yeah, that, which is maybe, you know, unusual, I would say, but that landing in a country or a territory where there is no psychoanalytic society. And now, 8 years after, I hopefully I'll graduate sometime the end of this year or beginning of next year. So, and we have established an Allied Center, and hopefully that will be approved by IPA. But it's been, and making connections with inviting analysts here or on Zoom to present, and establishing connection with a small institute, which is the Psychoanalytic Psychotherapy Institute in here. But yeah, I think the other part was really missing that connection with the Italian society, because not being formally a candidate, not because I haven't started the training yet, I didn't have that community established. So as I say, the only connection was my analyst, who very, you know, ahead of time, he said, I'm gonna be available on Zoom, but something that was completely new to him. And he said, we are gonna learn together how to do this, because it was so important for me, really. And I would, yeah, that has been the only connection that I had, really, and but I could process some of the feelings. And in terms of time, someone I remember told me when I arrived here, just in terms of migration, they said, look, it's going to take you at least 2 years, which now makes sense of, in terms of the process of grief, I suppose, usually, or at least. And I initially thought that this is going to be too long, really, 2 years. I'm not, because I wasn't sure that I want to stay here. It's such a different country, such different cultures. Everything is so far away from Europe and the culture that I was used to. And so, yeah, I think it took me, I would say, almost 80 years, to be honest, because now I feel more settled, and it's 7.5 years. So just to share.
Yeah. Thanks, Gloriana. No, thanks a lot. And I know it's, in terms of time, it's night for you there, or early morning. And I heard in terms of adapting the soil where you land or where anyone else land, we should learn to adapt to different time zones and give you a different time zone next time for a meeting like this, not for you. Because I remember your training, your colleagues training at the Chicago Institute saying that during the pandemic, the Institute changed their approach to distant training and decided to adapt the schedule suddenly after years of not having moved much about in terms of sessions. So that's how we would like to learn how to adapt the soil where we land and share that. So before I allow any other questions, I just wanted to say we have 2 little pre-organized presentations by Afsna and me and myself. Do we want to say something now, Afsna, or then we allow some other questions and answers? Yes, please. Afsna, do you want to introduce yourself? Thank you.
I thought you were asking. Hi, my name is Afsane ALISOBHANI, actually Afsane Kiani ALISOBHANI. I am an immigrant in multiple ways. I came to this country 42 years ago and originally from Iran. And I'm an immigrant to psychoanalysis. I'm an immigrant to the IPA Institute, NCP, that Louise and I are a member of. So I have been really fascinated with the idea of immigration, and I appreciate this committee and this committee's work to really explore, not that we have an answer to everything and all, as I hear everybody's stories and comments that the complexity of it. I keep thinking about your cat, Andrea, because I have lost my father when I was away, and it's the loneliest of experience when you lose a loved one when you're away from your family, and it's just a whole different level that that you've kind of like, you have to be there and you experience it as, as it comes on. And I am in awe of your, Jean, I don't see Jean, like they deciding to move back to Vienna. But as I've been thinking about this idea of immigration, that as Luis said in his comments, psychoanalysis is really a story of immigrants. It founded on the myth of Oedipus. Oedipus was an immigrant, was adopted by and his adoptive country, Corinth, and then eventually went back home and was blinded by the story, as not to get too theoretical, as and I'm as Rogelio talks about Bion, I'm an avid fan of Wilfred Bion and his story of the imaginary twin, that ultimately we are all immigrants from the womb, and we are hoping for a welcoming arm when we come into the world. And really, as we're talking about in this committee today, it's all about the caesura. about the process and about the breaks that happen, because cesura is a process, and also all the breaks that, you know, all the disappointments. And it's, as Rogelio and Luis and everybody said, it's really about having, you know, thickening your skin. It's a huge narcissistic injury. It's difficult from the my most minor thing of being like having multiple sets of identities, of being a different self to make others feel comfortable. My name, Afsaneh, is still a difficult name after 42 years, and I have been very resistant to adopt to some more Western European name. So I'm sucking it up, and I appreciate people's attempt to try to pronounce my name as best as they can. But every time my name is not pronounced the way I'm used to in my hometown, mother tongue, I do remember that I'm an immigrant, and maybe that's not a bad thing. It's as Luis said, and Saba, that we are really an immigrant into our patients' worlds. Every single session we're stepping in, and it's maybe it's not a bad thing to be constantly in touch with that and aware of it, and it's the creativity and the gift of it, as well as the trauma. So recently I've had this privilege of reconnecting with my home country after 40 years and teaching young psychoanalysts, people who love to learn about psychoanalysis, young and passionate. And it's quite an amazing experience. You know, Sabas, it's a different experience for me, because now I'm learning Farsi to try to talk about psychoanalysis in Farsi, and it opens whole new different worlds. And I'm very proud and privileged that I have started to translate the works of Wilfred Bion into Farsi. And I just finished translating Learning from Experience, Rogelio. So hopefully this process of learning from experience is going to be a motto, and it's going to be somewhere in the back of your mind. And Andrea, I wish you stayed in California. We'd have a home here for you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Asna. Yes. Just a few minutes. Virginia and John, do you have 2 seconds to bear with me so we finish our presentation, and then we'll all share a bit more? Because it's a strange, it is a difficult feeling, the one of going from warm, hot, cold, warm, hot, cold. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit of my reflections on these latest things of the conceptualization of psychoanalysis and the migration of analysts. Because I realized that we may have a different way to accept the concepts, integrating concepts from different cultures compared to integrate analysts themselves. It's a funny situation. I don't know, a few months ago, I was listening to this panel, to a podcast on the encyclopedic entries of the International Psychoanalytic new dictionary that they are preparing. And they were saying these concepts mutate and they cross among different psychoanalytic and social cultural geographies. And when they land in a different country, they change their meanings. They have different meanings, like terms like intersubjectivity or countertransfer or transfer itself. Those kind of entries, when land in a different country, when they were inquiring about, this, how does it work, the vocabulary system, now they are inquiring all the regions to say their own view, to give their own views on this, on the psychoanalytic concepts. And they realize while discussing that concepts take different they grow differently, even the same concept determined by the land they were landed and they are accepted. So I was saying, but what happens to the psychoanalysts themselves? That they are the ones, we are the ones who develop those concepts ourselves. So do we have two different ways, accepting theories and not accepting psychoanalysts, or difficult at integrating that? So this is again the theme on the part of the recipient. So in the event of this cross-cultural contamination, the accepted country will integrate a new concept based on how they are, on how we are as a geographical specificity, like Iran, Persian languages, or English or Spanish. Or then, like Sabal was saying, he will have to retranslate again. And every process of translation, as we know, we're all psychoanalysts, implies a change. And change is brought with our own transfer onto the concept itself. So, for instance, in Italy, we have the culture of our Italian societies, which is spread all over the boot of Italy, has different concepts developed in different areas, depending, we think, in the book Reading Italian Psychoanalysis, we think that some concept landed in different areas of Italy took a different characteristic depending on the area. Virginia, you know, for instance, in Sicily, they have theory field. Can we imagine any other city, any other country in Italy where the group is more important than in Sicily, which is another big island and so welcoming and friendly, and where the group is so strong, with good and bad, but it's so strong. Or other ideas like Ferenczi theorist landed and translator landed in Bologna. And guess what? Bologna is the city where we say Bologna is the big mother with big tits and nurturing everyone. And how come the Ferenczi was so popular there? And so we went on with different ideas and different, maybe it's an interpretation. It's an possible explanation how concepts changed and landed in different areas with absorbing the soil. So this was just my few thoughts about this. So I'm going to finish here because we have a few more, and I want to leave it to all of us to discuss again. Thank you. So please say something. You raised it.
Jeanne, you want to speak before, or? In a few ways, first of all, I want to thank Luisa and to thank all of you for this beautiful afternoon and for all the suggestions and the experience you brought to me, to us. I want to say only two things. The question, the importance of the experience of migration as a really new something like a new beginning, but I mean a new analytical beginning, as if we have to make something like a new analysis or a new experience of our being with patients and being analysts and ourselves. I mean, for me, it's very interesting what you said, Luisa, and the complex question of translation of psychoanalytical concepts, or as you said, as Sudhir Kakar said, that the different, as a wine that came a different taste in different territoire. The same question, different taste of psychoanalytical concept in different geographical situation. But what is very interesting to me, and I would like to ask you, perhaps for a new meeting, not only the psychoanalytical concept, but the psychoanalytical experience. I mean, for instance, how you, as a migrant analyst, experience the different psychoanalytical listening between different languages, how this echoes in yourself in this different level. I think this is very, very interesting because this experience is not, it doesn't regard only a very few number of analysts, but perhaps can be a contribution to psychoanalytical thought in general, how, for instance, this different level of psychoanalytical listening go up and down between different languages. Thank you very much to all of you, and especially to Andrea and Hasnes, if I good pronounce, because really you bring your complete your body and soul and try to transform it in psychoanalytical tools and thoughts. Thank you very much to everybody.
Luisa, if we are going to have time, I'm going to talk about one little experience about speaking another language with a patient. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly something about, since, you know, we were also thinking about maybe reading something about it. There is this book here on immigration, immigration in psychoanalysis. It is, it's been out since I think 2016. So it's a lot of analysts, all of them, I think most of them in it have been immigrants themselves and writing and wrote about their experience from different ways. I have a piece in it about being in between two languages, a never-ending fascination of, you know, what language can do, which another language cannot do, and what gets lost in between, but what also can be said in one and not in the other. So it's maybe a bit, maybe useful to read. And the only thing I do want to come back to, and it touches on something that Luisa was talking about. I do think that we should be watchful about this idea of identity, because as when you read about identification, everybody quotes and cites Freud as the one who never, except in one talk, used the idea and concept of identity. He talks a lot about the process of identification, but never about identity. So I think we should be careful to think that identity is a firm sense. It's an illusion to have an identity, a well-formed identity that we somehow leave behind in Colombia or in Argentina, and then we establish a new one in New York. Or I leave my Californian identity behind at Pink and become a new person, or adopt a new identity. I think that's, I would say, to be a little provocative, that's a false idea. Mm-hmm. And hence, I think our committee and being devoted that much to the topic of immigration is because it shows how we're constantly in process, how we're constantly changing, how we're constantly adopting something, dropping something. But I think I think it's wrong to think there's an identity is always in flux. And it's and I think this is really what psychoanalysis teaches us, and we see how labile identity is when we think about all the hot topic right now of identity politics. So that's all I wanted to say.
No, thanks. If you want to stay with us, have a 5-10 minutes. I'll have a round of questions, and Costanza raise her hands. Then there's Afsna Luis. Yes, okay, Costanza Aranguren, please introduce yourself.
I'm a psychoanalyst from the Colombian Psychoanalytic Society, and I am living now in Glasgow. I'm also a guest member of the British Psychoanalytic Society. I just wanted to say again, thank you for this meeting. And I think this one has been particularly enriching for me. The papers have been very touching, and also the capacity that Andrea had to put into words with us, how hard it is was very meaningful, because it is a very tough experience, and I can relate with so many things that you have been through. The space, the reduced space, the lack of light, and missing the sun, but also, as also Luis Alejandro was saying, this terrifying experience, and at the same time very enrichful of huge fragility and vulnerability, because as he says, there's no plan that works as you had thought. Also, there's always someone that gives you the hand, that welcomes you. And this group is also that, no, it's been that for me as well. They say here in Britain a lot to support their football teams. They sing this song, "You Never Walk Alone." And this group is the proof of that. It's a shame. Sometimes we wish we could do more for our friends and colleagues, and we cannot walk the walk for them. But it is great to have you here and know that we are never walking alone. Thank you.
Thanks. Luis, and then Asnat, and then Danielle, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just two comments. One following Virginia about the languages. During my struggling trying to get patients here in California, suddenly I got a request from China. And then I was working with a therapist in China, one therapist, and we were using English as a second language. Eventually more therapists reach out, and now I'm working with many Chinese psychotherapists, even though I am in California. We discovered that using not the mother language, which is Spanish and Chinese for my patient, but using the father language, a second language in which we were both at the same level, you know, we were both castrated somehow by English, and using it with our accent, with our vocabulary, with our difficulties, with our rhythm. It became fun. And eventually we were creating a fourth, you know, or a fifth language. Now, I'm speaking Chinese now. I can't explain it. It was an opening. I guess that by this identifying, following Jeanne's comment, it's not only about identifying, it is also about letting go, opening space. And when you open space, I am very surprised with my experience of being able to learn the most difficult language in the world. I mean, like, what happened? And during the process, I also discovered myself, and this is hard, but I also discovered myself disidentifying from some of my supervisors in the past. And also disidentifying, not with everything, but with some parts of my own analyst, that today I disagree. And maybe I disagree because I found myself in a different situation. So at the end, I am back in analysis. And I am enjoying my analysis as I have never before.
With a Chinese analyst? With a Chinese analyst?
No, from Argentina. Finally, I will reach out to Argentina. Yeah.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you. Afsne, then Danielle, and then Andrea, please.
You know, I just wanted to say a couple of things that, you know, when we're talking about, you're right, John, that when Freud brought in the Oedipus complex, it was really more from the sexual crime and the incest, crime of incest. Whereas really, Oedipus went to the oracle to ask who he is. It's a myth about identity, and it's really about really like something that he actually lost touch with and eventually had to blind himself. But as the language goes, just a little anecdotal story. I have a patient who's from Israel who just recently emigrated from Israel at this time. And one day in the session, he was so angry, you know, so upset, and he couldn't find the language because English was very new to him. And so he had a very hard time. So I finally told him, I said, just say it in Hebrew and use the word in Hebrew. Lo and behold, that's the same exact word we use in Farsi. said he's really like anguished and angry, and the word is in Hebrew is atzabani, and we have in Farsi we say asabani. I said, oh, I know that word.
Thank you. And Daniel Castillo, who's another guest here, wanted to say something. Please, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to share my experience. I'm Daniel Castillo. I'm an advanced candidate from the Institute of the Uruguayan Psychoanalytical Association. I did the first part of my training in Caracas in Venezuela. And after that, I have to move to Uruguay. I can say that my process has been quite satisfactory. I think our success in part has to do with the legal regulations of every country, of each country imposes, and how close or receptive are each society. But also, as Graciela says, in our capacity to face our internal process of what we lose when we have to migrate. In my case, I have to revalidate my degree as a psychologist, and also allow the association that received me to study the revalidation of my previously study plan and decide how many seminars I have to take in my new association. And what should, I think the hardest part is what I should do with my supervisions. When I came here, I have one of my training controls almost ready, but I have to begin again that supervision. Also, I was affected a bit by an internal process in the APU because the director who interviewed me and they were agreed to join me into the association belonged to a board that a years after that change. And that meant to having to revalidating again and study again my previously study plan. After that, I had to take more seminars than was originally planned, but I got 1 year of my first control case revalidated. At this moment, I have finished my seminars in the APU. I have felt well received. I can say I'm one more here. And in fact, I participate in some commissions as a publication of the candidate here. And also I'm part of one of the working group of Caliban. Caliban is the Latin American Journal of Psychoanalysis. In Uruguay, I may completely work as a psychologist and psychoanalyst. I attend face-to-face patients. Some of them patients are referred by the APU. And also others remote from Venezuela and other countries, no? The only limitation I have here is that I'm not be able to work in public hospitals or public association or organization until I obtain Uruguayan citizen nationality. I can say that all the process have been not so difficult for me, but I must recognize that the more part of the case for authors, colleagues are so hardest than my case. Well, thank you very much, every of you, for sharing your experience too.
Thank you, Daniel. It is a happy ending story, yours. We're very pleased that you were able to share, and you had you were very strong as a candidate to move, because it's the most difficult thing, because there's all this variable the institute will have to evaluate. But this is a good story of how receiving soil is happy to receive. Yeah. Andrea, something? Yes, please.
I wanted to thank you all for this therapeutic moment for me. I wasn't expecting it, but when Graciela started showing these images and describing these internal processes and feelings, I couldn't help it, and all my emotions came out. And it has been great to listen to the experiences that you have had, because so far I had been telling myself, I've been feeling so guilty and bad because I didn't adapt fast enough. And when I listen to your experiences and you say that it takes more time, it gives me a sense of preparation. That's it. Thank you.
Please, everyone, keep in touch. We have our, I'll briefly share again our emails, which you will receive if you want them again. We will share them on the, I can give them to you via email as well. And this is our next step, is really the one of integrated what we are learning from our experience to the immigration and migration process of accepting. As Virginia was saying, okay, they didn't call us in, but we are around, we're part of the same group, bigger group, IPA. So we need to accept that we are bigger than our locals. So we need to see how to develop this story from the part of the recipient. Okay. This was great. Thanks a lot for coming around.
Bye.
And we'll be in touch in the beginning of autumn for another of these meetings, more informal one than this one. Thanks a lot.
Before we
See
go,
you at the Congress.
Graciela.
Before we go,
Graciela.
is there a possibility to take a photo?
Yeah,
I'll take it like this. I'll take it like this.
Screen.
I'll take
I
like this.
took many pictures. I'll send you.
Please
Thank you, Sylvia.
with the screen.
The screen, yes.
Screenshot,
Luis,
screenshot.
do you know?
Yeah, Luis knows.
Hopefully, yeah. It's a new computer. Let me see.
But
Okay.
I have it. We have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have the recording, which will adjust a little bit according to everyone's will. Yes. Okay. Thanks so much.
It was super great.
And we will see you this week in the meeting.
See you in the Congress.
See you in the Congress soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.